Hello, it is Tuesday the 12th of December and this is an altcoin update. I've done a separate update for Bitcoin, so we're just going to look at altcoins. And for me, my favorite altcoin indicator is still ETH BTC because it's a really good proxy for what the rest of the altcoin market is doing. Now, let's take everything off this ETH BTC chart and start again with a clean chart. Now, for me, when I look from the high that we made in 2017 to this low that we made in 2019, I look at the fib levels from here and see where we reversed. For me, this is a textbook 50% retrace of this drop. So that's where we went back to. And now when that happens, I'm looking for a 50% pullback the other way. And no surprise, 50% is also here where we've double bottomed. So now the 50% level in the middle of this sideways range, it's going to be the decider for me. Let's tidy this up, take all the other marks off so we can see it clearly. So, and you can see it's a little bit of a support and resistance level here in the middle. This is a monthly chart of ETH Bitcoin. If we go down to a weekly chart, hopefully we can see it a little bit more clearly. There we go. So 68.72 becomes really kind of important support. Now, because I think this is a big ABC, if we were to bottom here, I would probably move this to here and move this, which moves this higher. So if we have bottomed here in ETH Bitcoin, if we can recover and hold above this 200 weekly moving average, then our first upside target here in the middle is going to be 69.62, and above it, I think we're on our way up again. But we were obviously with a consolidation like this, and particularly, when you do this 50%, there is a danger that we're doing one of those kind of 5-wave corrections. So it's possible that we could rally up to here, have a bit of, and then get stuck at this and then do another, before we go again. So it's not for sure that we're going up. All of these weekly moving averages are flat. They're bunching up here in the middle. That means there really isn't much trend. It also means, in a good way, that ETH is kind of doing what Bitcoin is doing. So that's not terrible. But because we're underneath these moving averages and a little bit lower, we're a little bit underperforming, unfortunately, because of the ETF. And so for now, Bitcoin is slightly outperforming ETH and therefore alts. Now that's not true across the board, of course, because there are some alts that are doing spectacularly, but that's kind of the general way that I'm looking at this market. So potentially, let's go back to this 50% level, because let's take that off, sorry. Because in a correction, there is a possibility that we break down, that we lose this 50% support level and everybody's going to get really bearish. It's possible that we do an equal measured move here. So if I measure from this high to low, we could see a false breakdown down to 46.34. That would be an ABC equal measured move. And so if we do close and hold underneath 52.26, 46.34 could be where we go next. It could mean that the bottom isn't quite in. But again, if we hold here and then rally back above this level, that would be a really good bullish reversal sign. So above here, we can get excited that we're going up again. Okay. So ETH Bitcoin, it's not clear for the most part. It's not alt season, let's put it that way, yet. But that's what a good look would be. And the good thing about this if you make this equal ABC pattern, it's unlikely that you're going to make that triangle. Whereas if we are consolidating within the range of this first drop here, we don't make any, we could end up making a triangle. So not a bullish reversal yet. We really do need to recover and get back above this weekly 200 moving average. So when I look at this ETH Bitcoin here, look at this lovely consolidation. We can see clearly what a breakout would look like, can't we? Just we haven't got it yet. Now, fact, it looks a little bit, unfortunately, like a... now, when you break out for something from a consolidation like this with a double bottom, if we were to break out here, our first target would be this previous high here, and that would then make it a sideways range, and then above it, obviously, we can say we're then above that weekly 200 moving average and looking for more upside, as we discussed. So ETH Bitcoin for now, not dramatically underperforming, but not outperforming Bitcoin at the moment. Okay, let's look at our altcoin requests, and in fact let's first look at the ones that are supremely outperforming. So AVAX and INJ have been Injective, have really been the ones. Now when I looked at INJ, we said if we broke out from this sideways range here on the monthly, our first target was 42.28, and that's where we have paused. It's not a bearish reversal yet, it's just a pause at this big 236 fib level, and they really are big deals. Holding above it would see much more upside, but the first time we get here, we are likely, unfortunately, to see a little bit of a pullback here at 42.89. Now, I'm not going to panic if we don't come back too far, but because if we zoom out here, we can see we've made 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is an extended wave 5. If this turns into a bigger correction, we could end up back at these swing lows around 19, and we could retrace 50% of this entire rally. So I'm going to put my fibs on all the way from the low that we made down here to this high. And I'm going to look at this 236 fib and say underneath, I know it's quite a long way from where we are, but underneath 34.85, we are likely to see a bigger pullback. And so 34.85 is my bull bear line. And if we look at this on the 4 hour, you can see it's also this last previous swing low. So pretty important support. And how you handle this depends on what time frame you're looking at, but you can see on the hourly we've rolled over here. Another thing I might do is if we were to have a double top, I might unload a little bit, take some profits. So that's how I'm seeing AVAX 34.85 important support. INJ, however, has made a new high and really been impressive. Now, here's the weekly chart. Here's our new high. Previous highs and lows are really tricky levels because you can quite often see profit taking when we get back to them. However, when I look at this, if I look at this first big swing higher here, which is one, I think was 5 waves and a nice 3-wave correction, I think that we've got a little bit more upside, 28.40. And the reason is that, wave 3s are very often 1.618 or 2.618 or even more multiples of that of wave 1. And here you can see we went beyond the 1.618 level. If I look at it on a daily, you can see it was resistance, then we got above it and it was support. So 28.40 is the next level that I'm looking for. Now, I wouldn't sell everything I had of INJ when we got there. And the reason is that I think I would certainly get out of leverage positions, but I think that we should make a wave 4 here. And I think potentially somewhere around 22 is likely to be support in this wave 4. But if we measure what we think is this wave 3 when we top out here, we'll get a little bit higher. The most common retrace is like a 38.2 retrace. So we can't measure it until it stops. But that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for in INJ. So a little bit more upside, 28, and then we'll see if we have a little bit of a pullback there. But again, I'm only expecting a wave 4 and a sort of shallow sideways pullback, and I would be wrong. I think, yes, we could come back to 18, but I would a close and hold underneath this previous swing low, which is at 15. So in other words, if we got underneath it and it became resistance, that would be more bearish, unfortunately. And if this is wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and a really extended wave 5, we could end up coming back to the bottom of this. So let's hope not. So that's how I'm seeing those two big outperformers at the moment, INJ and AVAX. Okay, so my first request is SEI. Now here on the weekly, when you look at this, I really don't like taking these spike highs as fib retrace levels. If I was to, however, you can see that this is potentially a 50% retrace. So if I'm put in the 38.2 and we close underneath it, which so far we're not, we're holding this interesting support zone here, I would expect it to come back to 0.185. I've got these projection levels drawn in because if I measure the first, I'm going to go down to the 4-hour with this and zoom out. So if I measure the first rally off the low here and project it from this low that we made here, my problem here is that this is a bit of a textbook equal measured move, 50% retrace of, and so potentially we know what that means. If we lose this 38.2 and if we lose this 61.8 zone, we're likely to see a bigger move lower. So 0.23 becomes important support, and if we lose it again, we could see quite a much deeper retrace here. We would see at least 50% going the other way. Let's take that away. So you put your fibs on both swings, and it would mean back to 0.18. So key support and 0.18 if this support goes, and potentially more than that. You know, sometimes with a big ABC, you end up, sorry, it's not 0.18, 0.185. Sometimes with a big ABC like this, by the time the correction is over, you do 3 waves. So the first wave would be down to this 50% bounce, and then the 786, which would be back to 0.11. And these big kind of 3-wave moves tend to happen with new coins while they establish and while people start hearing about them, and so on. Now, if we were to continue higher from here, and if, let's move that back, sorry. So if we can continue and hold above 0.3144, this 1.618 would become my next, the next target of my attention. And then we could call this a wave 3 and get quite excited. So 0.4497 is the target if we can hold above 0.3144. But unfortunately for me, underneath 0.237 or a lower high here, I think we'll see another swing lower and more correction in SEI. Let's look at RBX, Rabbit X. Now, let's go to the weekly or daily of this one, because this is quite new. Let's zoom out here. So with a simple chart like this, I'm just going to put my fib retrace levels on, and I'm going to look for a 50% pullback. So this to me looks like a pretty simple 3-wave rally, and when I put this on, unfortunately, that's kind of what it looks like. But it did have a pretty extended. Anyway, I'm going to say simple retrace levels, because this pullback was to the 50% level, which is also quite important support and resistance when we look left, and we're bouncing from it. Now, you know the rules. If we bounce from 50% and hold above the 38.2, we're going to go 50% the other way. So we would be looking for 50% this way. 0.223, then I would expect a 50% pullback, and we need to break out of this 50% pattern to see which way next. Unfortunately, because this doesn't look like 3 waves down for me in Rabbit, I have to say that I think it's probable, if this just ends up being corrective, that we see another swing lower. Now, sometimes that, that move can be, we go quite high and we do a 61.8, and then we keep going. Doesn't necessarily mean a new low underneath this 50%. In fact, there's some really good examples at the moment where we're holding this 50%, but yeah, so 0.17439, important support, and looking for a bigger correction to start with that 50% thing. This is a tricky week in markets, unfortunately, and it may rub off on some of these. Let's take a look at MAV next. Against Tether. Now here on the weekly, yikes. I hate to say this. So this is another one where we look at where we haven't got that much data, and I don't know what happened here on this first big spiky thing. So I put my fibs from this high to this low, and we've reversed at the 50% here. Happy days, 50%, and now we've done 50% pullback the other way. Happy days. I would expect from here, here's our 50% level, also the daily 50 moving average. So there's a lot to like about this level at 0.29. If we can hold 0.29, I would expect a 50% bounce back to probably around somewhere 0.3, 0.33. If we break underneath this 50% level, unfortunately, the most common retrace when you make a big ABC and you're doing this correction, the next swing is likely this 236 fib and potentially much lower. So that's really kind of how I'm looking at this. Also, let's go down to the 4-hour. I suppose we could. I think that, again, 50% from this high is going to be pretty tough resistance. But above it, we've bottomed, and we're going to see a test of the highs. So 0.33. So I think we've started a corrective phase. So we'll do this, something like this. That would be bearish for another swing lower. We'll test the neckline anyway of this potential head and shoulders pattern. And the holding above this 50%, I'd like to see it hold to show that we're going up again. So that's how I see MAV at the moment. And if you're looking for a level to sell, 0.334 would be what I would be looking at with this 50% pattern going on. Okay, let's look at big time. Here's the spot. Now let's go to the weekly of this one. This one has made a lovely simple move, 50% pullback, new highs. And let's measure the relationship between these swings. Textbook 2.618. I think we're making a wave 4 then in big time. And so yeah, that's how I've measured from the low, from here. And therefore we should see another swing higher. Now if I take this off, another swing higher, similar to this wave 1 because this is a very extended wave 3. And let's put this swing on then and see where we are. Look at this lovely 50% retrace, double bottom. You know, we may, when we get going, just do 50% of this and then pull back 50%. But that's what I would be looking for it to keep going. It may be also that we need a bigger kind of wave 4 correction. Look how long this wave 2 took. In terms of time, it took quite a long time. So we've entered that chop zone of a wave 4. If you've made nice profits in this, don't give them back in this chop zone. Buy the lows, and if it doesn't make a new high and roll over, sell it and wait and buy some more, you know, and be a bit patient. I think that we've entered that kind of corrective zone. So yeah, good luck. In big time, I do think it has a good potential for another swing higher. Let's take a look at Bonk. Here we go. Gosh, another one. Very nice look here. Now here on the monthly. So we can't argue in this one really because we made a new low here that this was a wave 1. So we are in a simple new swing. And I'm going to go to the weekly. And this is another one where I think we could see a wave 4 here. So this would be 1, 2, 3, wave 4 and another wave higher. Let's go down and look at the relationship between, this is so extended. I need to go back to the weekly to do this. Okay, so here's our first swing from the lows to this high. So this swing is twice the first swing. 2 is a fib number, so this is pretty valid. And 2.618 of this first swing. So if we continue above 146939, whereas your next upside target 181,500 basically. So 181,500 would be where I look for next. And I think that we are in a wave 4. Now this one might go sooner, because if we look at this middle wave here correction, it didn't last that long. So, you know, we're maybe another couple of days, and this one should continue higher. 181,500 next for bonk. Where would I exit if I would be dead wrong? We could put this 236 fib in, you know, from this low. And let me just make sure I've got it all the way down here. You know, on a weekly, we're kind of holding this. So weekly close underneath 211. Sorry, I'm looking at 114,000 on the weekly. That would see a bigger pullback. But for now, you know, I would expect some consolidation here, and then this has another bit more of a push. So I like bonk. It's not a bearish reversal yet, but a weekly close underneath 114 could see a bigger pullback. Not necessarily a top, but just a bigger pullback, that's all. Okay, so that one's looking really good. Let's look at FTG, which we looked at before. Now, FTG, I'm going to go to the weekly. Had a really kind of interesting resistance zone from this low that we made in November 2021. And it looked like we were trading above it, and I was really hoping that we could hold above it. Unfortunately, we have not. And these previous highs in this kind of tricky zone has given us a bit of a reversal. So this is another one, though, where this swing is so much stronger than the first one. Let's measure them. So this was our first swing. It went to 1.618. So this is another one where I think we should see a bit of a wave 4 and then another swing higher. Now, those rules in Elliott wave, you know, about how wave 1, wave 4 and whatever can't overlap, they don't apply in a wave 1. You can have a leading and beginning diagonal, and they can overlap. So how far we come back and whether we come underneath this high wouldn't be so important for me here. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if this makes a nice inverted head and shoulders pattern. But for now, this is reversed at a pretty tough level. And for now, this equal measure move level at 0.44 is holding. Let's put my fibs on though, because I think this is... I need to go down one to see where to put this here. Now, if we do this and look at this most recent swing, this 50% level is pretty interesting, isn't it? Potentially, this pullback could be done here at 39.30. We go a little bit lower. We expect, you know, 39.30, and that's also kind of around where this high is. So I would not be surprised if this is done here at 39.30, and this is where we bounce from. But if we look at this on the daily, we can see that the 20 moving average hasn't caught up. And usually what that means is you either come all the way back down and say hi to that moving average and then bounce back up again. That's possible. The other thing you kind of do is you go sideways and let these moving averages catch up a bit more. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that happens here in FTG, especially if this looks like one big move. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do a little bit of sideways trading here. But for now, 39.30. And this previous swing low is pretty good support for a bounce in FTG or on go. Let's talk about Doge, because Doge is another one where if you measure the swings, and I'm a zigzag girl, this is saying that potentially we could go a little bit higher from here. So this is the low that we made in June to the high that we made in July. deep pullback, and now we've done this lovely 5-wave move, and it's also 1.618 of this first swing. So this says to me potentially we're starting a new swing, and this could be a wave 4. And so very similar to FTG that we just looked at, I think we could see another swing higher here in Doge. Now, if I zoom out and we measure this swing from this low to this high, where would the next swing take us? Well, I'm looking for a first target of 61.8 of that first swing. So my first target is going to be up here at 0.12 for Doge after this pullback. So I'm expecting a consolidation and another swing higher that will take us to at least 0.12. That's my first target. And the second target would be a retest of these highs at 0.16. We've broken above these weekly moving averages. We've got a lovely bullish cross here, this weekly moving average. I expect pullbacks to be buy opportunities and another leg higher in Doge. So now the key question is, well, where's that pullback going to come to and what's it going to look like? Again, we're going to measure from our wave 3 here. Retrace levels were underneath the 236 fib. Remember, the most common retrace of a wave 3 is a 38.2, and so that puts us down here at 88.19, and that's also kind of around a bit of a pivot level here. Really good, cool support and resistance levels. So I would expect us to pull back to the daily 20 moving average and 88.19 in Doge, unless we can hold above 0.95, but it looks like we're underneath it and we've got a little bit further to fall. So it's not terrible for altcoins, and a lot of them look set to potentially have another nice swing higher. So we've just got to be patient and stalk that entry.